What is the secret of the snake charmer's art? Does this cobra really dance to his master's tune? In this remote churchyard in West Bengal lie the graves of two strange children. Is it really true that they were brought up by wolves? And in Goa, what has preserved the body of St. Francis Xavier from decay for over 400 years? Mysteries from the files of Arthur C. Clarke, author of 2001 and inventor of the communications satellite. Now in retreat in Sri Lanka, he ponders the mysteries of this and other worlds.
My own adopted homeland of Sri Lanka hangs like a teardrop from the southern shore of India. To travelers, that great subcontinent just across the sea from here has long been the source of extraordinary tales, snake charmers, children brought up by wolves, and miraculous feats by holy men. And in the wake of the travelers have come scientists and skeptics attempting to find the truth behind these stories. What do they think of mysterious India? Snake charming still fascinates and sometimes horrifies, but what's this charmer's secret? In the 19th century, Colonel Frank Wall, author of this book, The Snakes of Ceylon, was brave enough to investigate. He conducted his experiments with cobras on the veranda of his own house, and his work's being continued by Romulus Whitaker.
Snake charming has been around for a long time, and the obvious thing to everyone's sort of amazement is that the snake is actually dancing to music, so they think. We have stories such as a radio playing a certain tune and snakes coming into the house and just on their own dancing to this beautiful sound coming from the radio. So with these many beliefs wandering around India and people actually believing this thing, the snake charmer has no trouble at all in convincing his audience. I'm playing this sound and the snake is dancing to it.
No modern investigator has dared to repeat Colonel Wall's dangerous experiment and confirm his findings. 30 years of handling cobras have given Romulus Whitaker the confidence to try.
The purpose of this experiment is that we're going to try to see if this cobra will react to sound even when its eyes are covered up. And the theory being, of course, that the cobra is reacting to movement when the snake charmer waves his flute back and forth. So we've gently covered his eyes up. Back into the basket. Just let him calm down for a minute. Okay, he feels very disoriented. And the only reaction we are getting is that he wants to escape. Well, no reaction to that sound. Now, the snake charmer's flute is supposed to make him dance. But he seems still more interested in finding a place to hide and wondering what this is covering his eyes. He's not spreading a hood, nor is he reacting in any way to the flute or the pots and pans beating. Okay, now we'll take the blindfold off, I think, and see what. Be careful. Not only for him, but for yourself as well. And now let's see the reaction to this. Whoa, okay. Well, actually, it's the flute that he likes more than the music, but he'll follow that just about anywhere, including all the way around. So basically, the snake, when he's not blindfolded, is going to follow movement. When he is blindfolded, if you touch him, of course, he's going to react, but he hasn't heard a thing.
Most things rot quickly in the heat of India, especially bodies. That's why funerals are usually held only a few hours after death. So the survival of the body of St. Francis Xavier is all the more amazing.
Goa is a former Portuguese colony. It's where the first Christian missionaries landed in India. The Basilica of Bon Jesus is a place of pilgrimage, not only for believers, but also for medical investigators. The dead body of St. Francis Xavier is entombed here. Nearly 450 years ago, St. Francis died, but a gruesome mystery lives on. Why, after all this time, has his body not rotted away? Why can the flesh of his face and even the veins in his feet still be plainly seen? St. Francis was a tireless missionary. His journeys to spread the Christian gospel took him from Goa to China. Such was his zeal that in 1552 he died, aged 46, of exhaustion. His followers wanted to take his bones home to Goa as relics. They buried him in a grave full of quicklime to help his flesh rot, but they were to be amazed.
2 months or so later, when the body was disinterred, it was found that it was absolutely fresh. And to prove the freshness of it, one of the persons who disinterred the body made a wound just below the left knee, and the blood flowed out.
1 year later, the still fresh body of St. Francis completed the long voyage home to Goa.
In 1654, a French Jesuit called Father Bayard came down to Goa, and he examined the body in detail. He left us a vivid description of it as he found it there. And I'm impressed by the fact that he says that his eyes are black. That means he opened them to examine the eyes as though they were alive. He found the lips reddish and alive. He found also the relative softness of the body at the time. Can we ever presume to doubt the authenticity of this report, which is sent to France informally 100 years after the saint's death? I think this is a wonderful testimony.
At Goa Medical College, Dr. Audi of the forensic department is equally fascinated by the history of St. Francis's remains. Dr. Audi and his colleagues plan to study what's left of the saint. In their work solving murders, they see many dead bodies, but none as strange as this. The file on St. Francis's survival is still open.
Be careful.
Inside the basilica, they've built elaborate scaffolding for a historic post-mortem.
We can see here, there are heads, definitely.
Flesh remains on St. Francis's skull. Even wisps of his hair have survived 4 centuries. The doctors search for every clue. The corpse was last on open show in 1953. Its decrepit state today owes more to relic hunters than to rot. They cut off an arm in 1614. It's now in the Vatican. A shoulder and the entrails went next. Even some of St. Francis's toes have been carried off.
The first one was actually taken by a Portuguese lady. In exuberance of feminine devotion, she bit off one of the toes. 3 others fell off at different times. 2 of them are preserved in our sacristy. I have here a silver reliquary in which we preserve these toes, the relics of his body. We treasure them reverently because they belong to the father of our faith.
The scientist's bird's-eye view of St. Francis provokes fierce debate. They know why the body is decaying now, but how did it stay so fresh for 150 years?
After death, the two processes are taking place. Number one is autolysis.
Dr. Audi believes that the quicklime used in the original grave so dried the body that putrefaction could not set in. Thus, science explains the mystery.
The first sign of death is that the body stinks. That's a notorious, foul-smelling. Everybody will run.
Dr. Sepago, on the other hand, favours a miracle. He maintains that all the reports of the time speak of the body being moist.
The body should be disintegrated faster. Did
Agreed.
it take place?
No. In my opinion, I would say this body, the skin is completely dry because of the quicklime which has been put below and above this particular body and put in the coffin.
And in my opinion, I feel that the lime was used in order that the body should get decayed faster, which did not take place.
The scientists must agree to differ, but Father Rago believes the case has a divine solution.
I can only say it's a miracle worked by God. There are fixed laws of nature. They are laws that God himself has put in nature, but God can suspend his laws or can go against them. As here, he has suspended the law of corruption of a dead body. Now, why could he have done that? How can we fathom the mind of God?
My friend, Professor Carlo Fonseca, has spent many years investigating the various magical performances and feats that take place or said to take place in this part of the world. Of course, the most famous of all these is the Indian rope trick. Now, have you ever seen it yourself?
No, Arthur, I haven't. But of course, this, as you say, is the most fantastic of them all.
In 1938, a journalist from Bombay published these extraordinary pictures. He claimed they showed the classic rope trick. First, the magician tosses a rope into the air. Suddenly, it becomes completely rigid. His boy assistant scurries to the top. Under the hypnotic gaze of the magician, the onlookers swear the boy has vanished into thin air. Sabre in teeth, the magician scales the rope. The horrified audience sees the boy's severed limbs fall to the ground. But with a few magic words and a flourish, the master reveals the child at the bottom of the rope, whole again. Not all performances of the rope trick are so impressive. This magician called himself Karachi, but he was English. The Hertfordshire rope trick was a bit of a flop.
In your wide travels, have you ever seen it?
I've never seen it, and you know anyone who has?
Well, I count among my friends the smartest magicians in this country. They haven't seen it. None of them can perform it. But we cannot discount this altogether because there are people who claim to have seen it and actually photographed it.
In 1917, Captain F.W. Holmes VC took this photograph from the veranda of his bungalow in Pune. And another soldier took this precarious picture. In 1937, Lieutenant Colonel Cyril Streeter Dirtnell OBE, then serving in the Queen's Own Royal West Kent Regiment, arranged and filmed this demonstration at Karachi Army Barracks. The rope trick is not the only Indian mystery to have captured the imagination of the world. In October 1920, two little girls were discovered near Calcutta by a clergyman. The girls lived in this orphanage. It's now in ruins, but local schoolchildren are drawn to it for a poignant history lesson.
You see, this is the oldest house, I think, in the Midnapur. This is an orphanage. I will explain to you earlier. And you see,
The two little girls were said to have been brought up by wolves. Stories from the newspapers spoke of their animal habits, of their fierce natures, how they ran around on all fours. The Midnapore orphanage was run by the Reverend and Mrs. Singh. One day, alarmed villagers came to them. They said they'd spotted children living with wolves in the jungle. Reverend Singh's daughter-in-law recalls the wolves' den. It was deep inside a huge anthill.
It was shaped like a Hindu temple, and it had 7 holes. And these holes led to a tunnel underground where this wolf family used to live.
Singh was prepared to kill the children's wolf parents to save them.
And he hired laborers, and they came with a spear, bow, arrow, and shovel, and they started digging a door. And as soon as they began to dig the door, the father wolf escaped. Then the mother wolf came out. She was very, very ferocious, and the laborers had to kill her with a spear. But when they went inside, they found the cubs and the children were bundled together. And this is how he rescued the wolf children.
The Singhs brought the two little girls home to the orphanage, but not to the human race. They drank and ate like animals. They hated to wear clothes. They spoke no human language and often attacked the other orphans. Fearful of bright lights, they liked to hide away. They behaved more like wolves than children. One of the very few people alive today who met the wolf children is Mrs. Geeta Malik. She visited the orphanage when she was 14.
I remember we went one morning. As we went there, the Padri's wife, she came forward and took us to the parlor. And we sat there, and then she said, I'll bring the girls. But the child didn't like us. We could see that. She resented being looked at, actually. And then my mother asked her some question, what is your name? No answer. Do you like it here? She's nothing. No answer. She just growled, you know, she was just growling. There was a courtyard, and she rushed out to the courtyard. There was a little chicken going, and she caught hold of the chicken and twisted its neck. She was just going to eat it when the Padri's wife rushed out. It was bleeding. She rushed out and took the chicken away and caught hold of the girl. I said, I must lock her up. She's in that mood now. Whatever she sees, she will bite.
After only a year, in 1921, the youngest wolf child, Amala, died of dysentery and fever. Her sister was inconsolable.
She wouldn't touch food, neither food nor water or milk, for 2-3 days. And at night she would howl like a wolf, cry, scream, and after dusk she would run out of this orphanage, but she couldn't find Amala.
The older girl survived only into her teenage years. She died in 1929. Now the children are buried beside their adoptive father, together in death. But in life they had remained true to their first family, the wolves of the jungle.
India is the home of one of the world's oldest civilizations. Much of its history and culture is recorded in ancient writings. Yet the secrets of some of its greatest technological achievements have been lost. Rediscovering them has provided challenges to metallurgists in particular.
The ruined mosque of Qutb Minar with its iron pillar is the site of 2 metallic mysteries. Tradition says that embracing the pillar backwards will bring luck, and tourists flock to try. The first mystery: why has the pillar never rusted in 16 centuries? Scientists now know the secret lies in Delhi's mild climate and the chemical makeup of the metal itself. A team from the National Physical Laboratory is trying to solve the second mystery. Dr. Ashok Kumar.
The earlier scientists have already answered many questions. It only remains now a mystery, how was it made? Especially if we look at its age, 1600 years old. And if we look at its massive weight, about 6 tons of weight and such a long one, that remains a mystery, and we'd like to certainly answer how was it made and what is the structure inside.
A popular theory is that the ancient metallurgists placed discs of molten iron one on top of another. Heavy hammering and more heat bound them together. They formed the pillar, like a tower of iron chapatis. Dr. Kumar is using ultrasound to detect any joins left by such a method. The speed that sound travels through the iron will tell him if the pillar's made of discs.
We put two transducers diametrically opposite to each other and measured the velocity. And then kept one transducer secured at one place and moved another one a bit higher and again measured the velocity. And then brought this one a little lower than even the previous position, and again measured the velocity. Now, these three velocities are roughly of equal order. If there was anything, any joint here between the two pieces, this velocity would have not been the same.
Kumar concludes the pillar was built in one piece, but how was this cast, centuries before the invention of large furnaces?
What we would like to suggest right now is that it was perhaps a mold in which the iron was simply put, the molten iron was put, allowed to cool down, and hammered it from outside. And then some more iron put in the mold and again hammered from outside. And they continuously kept on doing for days and days till they could get to this shape.
India's holy men claim to have a repertoire of more than 1,000 miracles, but not everyone is happy with the influence this can give them over superstitious and gullible people.
The weirdest parade in all India. It looks as though a host of holy men have come to town. The posters promise a feast of miracles. But appearances deceive. That's the message of this man. Premanand has dedicated his life to debunking the holy men's repertoire. They claim they can perform 1,500 miracles. Pulling a chariot with hooks in the back is miracle number 25. Dedicated to exposing godmen who cheat the poor, Premanand travels India explaining their trickery.
The next item is making tea on the head of a beautiful lady.
This is miracle number 95.
Keep it over. And the person has to be very careful that doesn't move the head. People think fire is dangerous. Remove. Then what you have to do, you have to very carefully put it on it so that it doesn't fall down. You take it. You put wet dough.
The trick is explained. Wet dough hidden in the towel keeps the lady's head from burning.
And knowing this secret, the godman move the fire on their body.
In the evening, the village show begins.
This village, ask him not to move the fire on the body, but to keep the fire on the same place.
Nervous volunteers are chosen to take part.
ಅದರ ಟ್ರಿಕ್ என்ன தெரியுமா இதுதான் சொல்லி கழிச்சிடும் ஒண்ணுமே ஆகாது அப்படியே உள்ளில வந்து உள்ளில போய்
My ambition in life is to see at least one miracle before I die. I think my experiences shows that I may not be able to do it. But if people can help me, if they think they have come across any real miracle, if they will tell me where it is happening, and if it is a real miracle, I'll be dying peacefully thinking that my search has ended.
Well, perhaps in my attempt to deflate these mysteries, I've offended enough holy men to last a lifetime, or, if some of them are right, several future lifetimes.